My name is Justin Leclue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And today, we are talking about just a topic, filmmaking.
Movies about movies.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that you have any interest in, Will? Because I don't think we've ever discussed like filmmaking in the way that is portrayed on screen in movies.
I suppose I'm interested in it. Mm-hmm. There have been certain, I have in my head over the years had a sort of canon of personal favorite movies about movies. But after this week, perhaps it's changed a little bit. Who knows?
And I've always been fascinated as a filmmaker myself. I love to see the way that process is kind of portrayed on screen, because the thing about movies is that they're very long, complicated, and difficult personally and technically to make. So it's not always exciting to see on screen.
I mean, what you often see in movies about movie making is, you know, like Truffaut's Day for Night, the agony and the ecstasy. Mm-hmm. It's so hard, but at the end of the day, isn't it glorious? The Dream Factory, Babylon, baby.
Yeah, Avatar, right there on screen, right?
Right.
But I also love movies about movie making where it's kind of the nitty gritty that you don't see usually. It's not like, oh, we got the take, haha, we're a success. But like, what does it mean to just work in movies all the time? Where do you find kind of like a victory from that? And what does it mean to make it a job as well?
So, you know, I was searching movies about movie making and seeing what were the first ones that come up.
Impossible Horror.
Yes. Yeah. Number one in my heart.
Yeah.
But, you know, you see Singing in the Rain, mm-hmm. The Artist, Sunset Boulevard.
But those are all ones, especially those first two, that are like very surface level.
Absolutely.
About what the process of movie made, the magic of movies, if you will.
Yeah. I would also maybe put Tim Burton's Ed Wood.
Oh, love Ed Wood.
I love it too, but it's also sort of.
Yeah, it's kind of magical.
Yeah. Like, isn't it great? Your friends, the gang getting together and making a movie, no matter how bad it is. I'm curious, do you have a canon in your head of like documentaries about making movies? And is that a different kind of category? You know what I mean?
Not really, because like the narrative of making a movie is not usually that exciting. So I love kind of on the wall featurettes on Blu-rays and like watching the process of making movies in a kind of extended form. So like if you tell me that a Blu-ray has like 2 hours of like behind the scenes footage of them making the film, not that many talking heads, that's what I'm interested in, is like the real beat by beat thing, which narrative films have a real difficulty in constructing.
I have a few favorite documentaries about the making of movies. First of all, we were mentioning this before we even started recording. Giuseppe Makes a Movie by Adam Rifkin.
Oh, I love that one. I think about that one all the time. Yeah.
And what's so great about that movie is it's about this guy named Giuseppe, who is one of the actors in Detroit Rock City.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cabin Fever, he plays the cop.
And he just decided to, you know, go back to the trailer park where he lived and make movies with the people at the trailer park, you know, the weirdos, the eccentrics, the old people. And that documentary by Adam Rifkin is all about, you know, the problems that he has on the set are just microcosms of problems you would have on any set. Although, except in his case, it's a guy keeps shitting his pants. Mm-hmm. But still, he has to make his day.
Yeah,
you know?
He has to figure it out within the time limits. A lot of the times that are imposed by him, like at one point his dad goes, you know, we buy these props at the dollar store, but he just doesn't want to reuse them in other movies. He just wants to rebuy new props. He wants to make it feel fresh. And he talks about like how inspired he is by like Fassbender and that he rewatches Fassbender movies to get more into the vibe. And then you see the movies that he makes and it's like a man screaming and doing cocaine in a hotel room.
Everybody knows and loves Burden of Dreams,
mm-hmm.
but I have a particular place in my heart for kind of the B-side Burden of Dreams, Herzog in Africa, or Location Africa, which was an hour-long documentary, fly on the wall, the making of Cobra Verde. Folks, have you heard of this movie? It's incredible. Look up this movie. It's just, yeah, fly on the wall footage of Herzog making Cobra Verde with Kinski, who at this point, Kinski is gone.
He's completely gone.
He's monstrous. He's a psychopath. He cannot be controlled. And it's Herzog just trying to keep the goddamn thing afloat. And the extras are all about to revolt because they're not being paid. And there's that incredible shot of Herzog like just barely trying to maintain order, where he's like, if you do today, I promise you by the end of the day, I will give you your money. And if you don't have your money, you may kill me. All of you may kill me. That is my promise to you.
I love Please Kill Mr. Kinski, the famous little featurette that's about Which
Kinski was making Crawl Space.
Crawl Space, that's right. I was trying to think of the director. I was like, the guy from Tourist Trap. There's a documentary on the film Duelist, which is a South Korean film. It has English subtitles, only on like the 3-disc special edition that was released. But like that one, you see a director who's almost losing the ability to communicate on how to make like what he wants, and the producer's like, I don't know if he's gonna have another movie in him, because like he's like swoosh swoosh, and like he's been in movies so long that he's kind of like lost how to go forward with them, and I find that fascinating.
I would give anything for a fly on the wall documentary about the making of Clint Eastwood's current movie. Clint Eastwood's like just directed a movie. He's 94 years old, and like,
what is that?
Yeah, I'm sure he's surrounded by a crew that knows what he wants, but what is he able to do? How does him being there affect the tempo of the set when he's 94 years old? I mean, we'll never see that.
No, never.
I would love to see what that is.
Even just like an oral history. I just want the people, like, what is it like? Is it like the way that they always talk about Clint Eastwood's productions? He makes his day. We get it. We leave. That's it. Mm-hmm. Full Tilt Boogie. Did you ever see that one?
No.
The one about From Dusk Till Dawn that doesn't focus on Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez. They barely appear in it. It's all about the crew members. And at one point, I believe, I haven't watched this in a long time, like it got shut down because they were a non-union shoot and union members learned about it and they basically shut it down. So it's a lot of like voicemails going back and forth of like, how are we going to go forward with this kind of stuff?
That's amazing. Well, one classic DVD extra that I always liked was The Hamster Factor.
12 Monkeys.
And Other Tales of 12 Monkeys, which I think I actually maybe kind of like that one better than Lost in La Mancha.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's a little less pretentious, you know what I mean?
Even though it's the same filmmakers.
Yeah, and I like Lost in La Mancha, but it's just like...
Lost in La Mancha doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
Like it just kind of ends because the production shuts down.
And yeah, The Hamster Factor is a very like, beat by beat.
What's going wrong? How do we deal with it? What are Terry Gilliam's like hyperfixations? In this case, the title comes from a little hamster that's supposed to run in a wheel that's in the background of a shot.
Huge shot, dense with visual information, as it so often is with him. And there's just that hamster wheel in the background that he's like, that has to keep moving. And how do you incorporate a temperament like that into, a big, well-oiled Bruce Willis movie?
But that kind of stuff usually doesn't really make it in fictional films about movie making, because they're more interested in like goofy stuff that can then be, go over and finally make your film. I mean, tons of them appeared in the 90s. I think of like the Steve Buscemi ones, like In the Soup.
Living to Oblivion.
Yeah, Living in Oblivion. Yeah. And like, oh, isn't it wacky? We have a little person on set. How are we going to get through this?
Yeah. Well, we watched for this episode 3 very different movies from 3 very different parts of the world. And if there's one word I think that unites all of them, it's something very different from, what you see in Singing in the Rain or Day for Night. It's compromise.
Yeah.
And the filmmakers at the center of these movies are compromised individuals, either artistically or morally or both. And the movies are all about them.
How do you get through that and create some kind of vision that you would be happy with? Because at the end of the day, if you're making, at least the ones that we watched are all about making things that in some way the people are passionate about what they're doing. Or how do you find, I guess, some reason to keep going? I mean, let's talk about the first one, because it's the heaviest, and it's also the one that I feel people will have no knowledge of at all, which is Safe Conduct from 2002, which is Laissez-Passer, which is a Bertrand Tavernier movie about making movies in Paris during World War II under Nazi occupation.
Now, who is Bertrand Tavernier?
Bertrand Tavernier is probably my favorite cinephile guy. That, like, if you hear him talk, if you read his books, he knows everything. He wrote an entire dictionary that he kept updating every few decades about American directors. He made like 12-hour documentaries just about his French movies, basically because people would go, oh, you're the American guy, right? And he's like, I love French movies as well. And he came up not with the new wave, but he was like writing for those magazines, but he was kind of in between, like Hey Cinema, Positif. He worked as a press agent for a bunch of different distributors before finally making his first movie, The Clockmaker of St. Paul. But he's a guy that, like, you never hear him in the conversation really when you're talking about like major French filmmakers, even though right now you can go on Criterion, almost all of his movies are there.
He's probably best known for Round Midnight from 1986.
Yep, absolutely.
But he also, in France and among some people, has a reputation sort of similar to Martin Scorsese as a cinephile director. And in fact, like Scorsese, he even made his own epic documentary about, it's called My Journey Through French Cinema. You actually recently found an interview that he did with Roger Corman.
Yes.
At the height of Roger Corman's like powers in the 60s.
Yeah, at the height of him basically like being a director before he moved completely into producer mode. And it's fascinating to hear Tavernier talk with Corman and like talk to him. I mean, at that time, Tavernier wasn't a director, but approaching him like he would like one of the great masters before Corman was able to kind of, you know, get all his answers down pat.
And Tavernier died fairly recently, but he
did.
actually did interview and I think was friendly with Quentin Tarantino towards the end. So he was still very active.
There's a big giant book that Tavernier published called American Friends, and that's where the Corman interview and the Tarantino interview are in as well. There's like Joe Dante and all of his favorite like American filmmakers. And the people that Tavernier loved were like the studio directors. Like he was great friends with Robert Parrish. He actually co-directed a film with him, a guy that you'll look up his films and be like, do I know those films? They're not the ones that people like elevate and that you see in the canon all the time.
Well, what was interesting reading up on this particular movie is that you associate, or I associate, French film criticism with like the Young Turks at the Cahiers du Cinema, the guys who were elevating like Edgar G. Ulmer and Jerry Lewis and people like that.
Do you know who did the big famous interview with Edgar G. Ulmer that Luc Moulet was at? It was Bertrand Tavernier.
Right. Okay. So voracious cinephile, but he was also a defender of what was called the French cinema of quality.
Absolutely.
Those directors who in France, you know, before the new wave, were making Tony prestigious literary adaptations.
So like the French New Wave, François Truffaut, his famous article about like, let's get rid of like the old guard, le cinéma du papa, let's let the new guys come in. And Tavernier was very of the belief that like, okay, a lot of those things are stodgy and bad, I'll admit it, but there's a lot of good stuff there as well. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And a lot of his films were written with those early kind of French directors. For example, Safe Conduct is basically following two guys, Jean de Vevre, who's an assistant director, and Jean Orange, who's a screenwriter. And Orange, he worked with Tavernier on his first few films as well.
And Tavernier also knew the other filmmaker as well.
He did know him.
And both of them, and when I started the movie, I didn't realize they were actual historic figures.
Yes.
I looked that up after.
A lot of these are just anecdotes that both of them shared with Tavernier.
Right. And both of them are kind of associated with that cinema du quality with like a little bit of an accent there. It's ridiculous. I think I'm intimidated by you, a French speaker.
You know what? You did French probably in elementary school for a while, right?
That's
probably
right.
into high school, I think, too.
Cinéma du qualité.
Du qualité. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
But yeah, as you said, this film takes place in Nazi-occupied France. It concerns French filmmakers who had differing professional relationships with the occupying German powers. So the action mostly unfolds between 1942 and 1943. During this time, pretty much the only game in town was Continental, this company that was run by Germans. Mm-hmm. And Jean de Vevre, the assistant director, he works at the studio, works for the German powers or with the German powers. There's a lot of politics in whether it's for or with.
Yeah, they're arguing that all the time, where they're like, we're not working, for them, or with them, we don't have any choice of what we have to do.
But at the same time, he is doing underground resistance activities.
So like the title Safe Conduct or Laissez-Passer in French, what it means is that if they work for the Continental Company, they get a document that allows them to like move around at night when nobody else would be allowed to move, which as you see in one scene in this picture, allows him to go like place bombs under trains in between the movie making, which he is genuinely passionate about as well. Now I should say, he plays an assistant director in this film, which you rarely see portrayed in movies, because in France, and I hear in other countries too, assistant director is a stepping stone to being a director. That is not really the case in North America, because assistant directors, they're more of a managerial class in the sense of like you're organizing, making sure things can run, and it doesn't always move up to the creative position.
Meanwhile, the other major character is Jean Orange, the screenwriter, who essentially left the film industry so as not to be a collaborator. Now, the film deals entirely in shades Shades of Grey. The De Verve character has a family that he has to support, whereas Orange has 3 mistresses at least. So it's, easier for him to leave his job.
But at the same time, like the movie makes a point of one of the reasons he does get back into it is to support another screenwriter who he meets just selling laces on the side of the street.
Right. Now, these 2 main characters don't know each other.
They only intersect like once in the movie.
Exactly. And they give each other sort of a knowing nod. So maybe they know each other in some way. But for the most part, their stories are completely parallel, evocatively parallel. But this is a 3-hour movie with a whole vast tapestry of characters, most of them based on actual historic figures. The writer of Grand Illusion is in here, for instance.
You also have Maurice Tourneur, the father of Jacques Tourneur, because one of the movies that they're working on or at least De Verve is working on for most of the picture, is The Devil's Hand, La Main du Diable. And like the way that it's probably like one of Tourneur's most like expressionist pictures. And like, this is a big part of the movie. It's like, how do you work with sin limits of, all right, you only get one take, because all the film is limited. And there's a lot of discussion with like, can we get more film, just a little bit more? And they're like, nope, you can't. Everything is being rationed. Also, you need to deliver us quality pictures.
Well, yeah, and there's also like a lot of, question of they've been assigned by the Germans to make these light, comedy films, basically.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I was reading some articles about like during World War II, when the Germans were in control, there were like less outright like anti-Semitic films than there were before, because it almost as if they wanted to keep like a normalcy of the things that were being created without turning it into complete propaganda.
I mean, it is amazing. Like, you look at the movies that are being made in Germany in the 1920s, the celebrated expressionist films, and they're so like full of ideas. They're so full of suggestion. And then if you look at I haven't seen a lot of the ones from the 30s, but I've seen some of them. Stuff like I've seen Baron Munchausen and the Titanic film, and they're notable for having so few like seemingly not having ideas. You know what I mean? And there's something sort of eerie about that. Now, there are scenes in this movie where like the French filmmakers debate, like, is it possible to put through ideas in these movies? Can you work with the master's tools in some way? I think it's unconvincing. I mean,
none of the people really want to be doing what they're doing. Orange is the one with the mistresses who is the most vocal. At one point they're at a dinner who they believe to be like a secret police, and the only way to shut him up is the woman that he's with knocks him out.
Right. And Tavernier across the 3 hours gives you this vast portrait of French society at the time, where so much of the normal social order is kind of either falling apart or sort of running without a lot of legitimacy.
But they're trying to continue it, which is like the depressing thing.
So there are the scenes where, famous actresses are at dinner with sex workers, basically, and everyone's just trying to keep up appearances, even though like that social order would be unusual.
I think that one of the things that have kept Tavernier's films from kind of like crossing into English language circles is the way that, and he said this himself, he has no interest in plot. He's like, all right, I got 3 hours. I'm just going to give you all of these feelings and these scenes. And eventually it's just going to end.
Well, yeah, I must say, I found this movie a challenge. I found it a rewarding challenge, but it doesn't have momentum. Sorry, I don't want to say it doesn't have momentum. It doesn't have the sort of momentum you'd expect.
And the way that Tavernier likes to work is because he constructs the scenes always playing kind of in sync with each other. He loves to start a scene right in the middle and like leave before you think it will. So you're like, wait, where am I? Who are these people?
Right, and just so many characters.
Oh, there's a million characters in this movie.
That the central ideas and conflicts only sort of gradually emerge.
And basically, Orange's role as a screenwriter is interesting because he kind of fades from the film as it becomes like De Verve's story. Because you're reaching a point where he cannot take it anymore, mostly because the people that he knows around him are being taken away for being Jewish, and they're getting kind of coming onto him because he's taking all these opportunities of working within the system to like take photos of, plans when the boss is out of the room and he left his briefcase there.
Right. And I actually found this movie more troubling than I kind of expected it to be, because it's dealing in shades of gray, because it's trying to put you in the mind of people who, are just trying to go about their day while like Nazi rule is happening. And I don't know, like watching it at this particular horrible moment in history with like what's going on in Gaza, guys like us, we're freelancers, we think about the sorts of institutions we work for. And it's so easy to make a billion sort of compromises, or to also say, well, it doesn't matter if I work for this place or
Wait, the institutions I work for? Nobody. I work for myself.
Gold Ninja Video is spotless.
You know, Gold Ninja Video, I have on 16mm a lost Jean Devèvre directed film that has never been released anywhere.
Oh, wow.
And I just haven't put it out on Blu-ray yet. But soon, at some point.
Coming soon.
Yep. Tied into this.
But so like there was a lot of this movie where, frankly, I was starting to think, and I'm not sure I was right to think this, but I was starting to think like, I wish Tavernier would like put the hammer down
like
at some
Judge?
point. Yeah, like Judge, and he refuses.
He refuses to.
He refuses.
If you
to.
read, like, he was very political in his writing and stuff. Basically, that like socialism plus all of that stuff.
Right.
But in this movie, because he's telling the stories of these people, like he's just presenting it to you. And you can interpret it in whichever way that you want.
And I guess I have to respect that, honestly. I think it's honest.
I mean, both of the main characters, at the end of the day, they're doing things like the screenwriter for other people to help them, giving them an opportunity. And Devèvre basically is rebelling while working at the studio until it becomes untenable and he just has to run away.
Yeah, and I'm bringing my own baggage to this too,
Okay.
Obviously. It's just like...
Will, I know your speech writing for President Biden is difficult, but...
Listen, it's the Hamas-run health ministry. We don't know if those numbers are real.
But like this kind of movie, it's weird to see it as unsentimental because it's a World War II movie. I hate World War II movies. And like the way that Tavernier wanted to come towards this is like he's shooting everything in like steady cams, like long kind of takes, no coverage. It's like this is the scene.
Couple of minutes actually prepared me for something the rest of the movie didn't fully.
Oh, really?
Well, just because the first scene with that like huge bombing raid and everything. I kind of thought it'd be a little more conventional, frankly.
Nope, and it is not. Something that I do enjoy getting back to filmmaking is that you see as well all of the little rebellions that like crew members would do. And Tavernier's talked about that, like, oh yeah, like the most right-wing crew members that like he would hear stories about French when the Nazis came around, like they became basically rebels working for the underground because that's all they could do in this type of situation. So as a kind of example of filmmaking on screen, I can't really think of anything else that portrays this type of situation. And for the record, like I hate World War II film. I'm tired of them. I don't want any more of them. But this one will show you something that you don't see anywhere else.
Well, I'm sad to see that Justin doesn't approve of remembering history. What movie should we talk about next?
Why don't we talk about Dangerous Game, the Abel Ferrera film? Well, you know, the last one was about kind of, you know, how do you mechanically make movies in a difficult situation? Dangerous Game is all about like the process of making movies.
You
working
commercial
with
piece of
actors.
shit. Yeah. Say that again, you commercial piece of shit. So
Sorry, your movie's opening in 2 theaters.
yeah. This was the movie that Ferrera made right after Bad Lieutenant, notable for starring Madonna, and it was
Produced by Madonna's company too.
Made for her company, and she disowned it before it was released.
Well, so it sounds like they had a script and they did not follow that script at all.
I believe that.
Yep. Watching the end result, I believe that it's mostly something constructed through editing and the improv that they were doing with the actors on set.
I was watching the extras, the Blu-ray extras on the new Vinegar Syndrome release. There was an interview with Ferrera where he said normally his first cuts are too short and they end up putting stuff back in. But for this one, the first cut was 4 hours. And you can tell, long improv scenes. The main character is Eddie Israel, a director played by Harvey Keitel.
Playing Abel.
Who is, for all intents and purposes, Abel Ferrera.
Wait, is that why Abel's wife plays Keitel's wife in this movie?
So
wow!
The amazing thing about Abel Ferrera is there are about a half dozen movies where whoever his current
is doing an imitation of him.
Whoever his current romantic partner is in there having a sex scene with the Abel Ferrera surrogate. And
Was he dating Madonna at the time?
No, but he was married to his wife.
Married to his wife.
Nancy Ferrara, who's in this film.
Let's be honest. He was probably having an affair with Madonna at the time.
I wouldn't know that.
I don't want to say anything. I don't want him coming down on me and or Madonna either. But so like this movie, you watch it and you can understand, oh yeah, that's why it didn't open that wide. It is a John Cassavetes-esque look into making a movie in a very scattered way. Wasn't like another title for this movie like Spiderwebs or something
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes, yeah.
That's right. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to synopsize the plot of this movie.
So like it starts in kind of normalcy, but presented in a way that's almost boring, of the Harvey Keitel director character eating dinner with his family, making love to his wife, finally going and making a movie. And then you basically follow the process of making the movie, but it's all, very focused on the performances of Madonna and James Russo, who plays the other lead in the picture.
Right. And there are many, many scenes. And I think that this movie is a crucial turning point in Ferrera's career, where he goes from, sorry, I'm getting lost in my train of thought here, but I remember there was a DVD commentary for King of New York. Where
hey, man.
Ferrera at one point said, like, he just rambles on those commentaries, but at one point he said something like, I wouldn't make a movie like this today if you put a gun to my head. This is fascist filmmaking. Now you hear that and you laugh, but I think what he was actually saying was, like, King of New York sort of underlines its emotions a little more. This is a turning point where he just lets the camera go. There's nothing in the gaze of the camera that's telling you exactly what to think.
Or where you are.
Right. Long, long scenes where the characters and you are stranded in these takes.
I don't want to be too mean to James Russo, who's the other lead of the film, who acts a lot, very successful. But at one point they're like, is James Russo that strong for this movie? And I'm like, I agree. He's not as strong as Madonna.
Madonna is incredible in this movie, actually.
And I can understand that, like, hearing the people who worked on the film, like the editor who's also on that Blu-ray talk, of like, oh yeah, this was a different movie. And Madonna's character, basically as the film goes on, is kind of pushed away. And supposedly when she watched the first cut, she's like, where's the movie that I signed on to? Like, it's not there anymore.
But she plays a successful TV actress who is trying to make this movie to get a little artistic credibility. And there are these long scenes, as you said, very John Cassavetes, of the Harvey Keitel director character manipulating and charming and then browbeating and basically abusing these actors into getting those performances. And the movie, frankly, invites you to ponder how much of what you're seeing is
real.
Yeah, like it invites you to ponder, is Ferrera just 1 foot away doing the exact same thing?
But then you also get these kind of little pieces in between them filming, which is rehearsal footage that Ferrera shot before they made the movie. But it's presented as, within the context of the film, them practicing for the movie that you're seeing in the movie.
And that also caught the actors by surprise.
That they would actually appeared in the film?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Well, it's a movie that raises a lot of questions about, art, acting in particular. Like, acting, there's no canvas. It's like people using their own bodies.
You know what's funny is that, like, you watch the movie, and the movie that they're making, you're like, sounds boring. I don't want to see this. But then you're watching that movie, so you're like, I guess they got me because I'm watching this.
Well, but it's like the acting, like, there's no more direct art form than acting. Mm-hmm. And, there's a scene in the movie where Madonna says, what's the difference between acting and feeling? And, like, that's a question that's at the core of this movie. And it raises a bunch of other questions, like, well, when they're tapping into these real feelings to fuel the performances, and when part of the director's job, like, there are multiple tiers of artists here. There's the actor who's an artist, but there's the director who's an artist, and the actor is subservient to that director's vision. Like what is the limit? Like, at what point does it become a violation? I think something that I found interesting about this film is it never gets into any of the technical things into the movie. Those people doing that are always in the background. Mm-hmm. They do their job, and it never really gets into it, except maybe there's one nasty sexual assault scene, and you can feel the crew being like, I don't know how I feel about that. But other than that, they're just like, whatever the director wants, let's get into it. And that sexual assault scene can't help but call to mind Last Tango in Paris, mm-hmm. right? Where it's basically like an acting exercise, an improv exercise. And then it's made real. Gone horribly wrong, but not just gone horribly wrong by accident. Like, it's tapping into real feelings between these actors, real power games that are happening. And there's, on the set, this dissolution of art and life has been fostered to the point where you get this horrible thing. And I don't know, I have to say, I found this movie on this viewing, like, genuinely, like, pretty terrifying. What it's... Bad people, but then, well, I don't know. I don't think it's quite as simple as bad people. No, I think probably Harvey Keitel is a pretty bad man. Listen, the Harvey Keitel is a bad man, yeah. but then it's like, I think the movie raises legitimate questions about, like, okay, like, what are the boundaries At what point?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe I'm too much of a simple man that I'm like, yeah, you need to impose those boundaries.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
You gotta act.
Maybe.
Like that kind of like message stuff, or like getting drunk before you do it. Like, get that out of here.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Interesting. So you don't think the omelet is worth breaking the eggs?
No,
for?
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not if you're crushing people to make that thing. As a director myself,
Well,
I would not put acting.
You know who would agree with you, Mr. Laurence Olivier.
Yep, I know that the classic story. It's called acting to go through it. But I mean, Abel, because he does so much improv, he is tapping into that stuff in all of his movies.
Mind you, I mean, the movie in no way, I think, endorses the Harvey Keitel.
I think at the end of the day, what it gets behind is like, oh yeah, Keitel as a character is a piece of shit.
Well, what's interesting about the Keitel character in this movie is he's seeking this truth, but then he's also a monstrous liar in his own way.
Yeah.
He's seeking truth through intimidation and lies and deceit, and he's, cheating on his wife.
And the revelation to his wife is such a selfish thing, and he gets basically the reaction from his wife that he deserves, which is like, why are you doing it? You like, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
But he still wants to go back to the innocent hugs of his young boy who doesn't know any different, and then he can just continue on the way that he already.
And is that truth? No, it's not true.
I mean, I got a big complaint about this movie. Harvey Keitel as a character does not do enough drugs in this picture. Let's get the real Abel Ferrera experience up here.
He does some drugs.
Not enough.
Not enough. Yeah. Well, hey, Abel Ferrera is still alive and well.
Now, how do you feel about this? Like, when it came out, it often got called like just a self-indulgent wank, basically.
I don't think so at all. I know that it was very poorly received at the time.
People hated it.
I mean, frankly, a lot of that I think has to do with the way it's positioned in the marketplace, the way that, Madonna disowning it obviously didn't help.
Abel Ferrera had interviews where he's like, Madonna, she killed it. I was like, I don't think so. Like, this was never going to be a massive success, my friend.
Well, first of all, I don't think it helped because it set a certain tenor in the way the movie was received by the press.
But like, you look at the performance and it's so raw, and I know a lot of them went after Madonna. She's very good in the film. I don't know, like...
But when you look at the MGM promotional materials, it looks like...
Like a sexy thriller?
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's not... If it was marketed like a Catherine Breillat movie or something, maybe it would have done a little better.
Or like a John Cassavetes film, really.
Yeah, but I don't know. Seen today, I found it devastating, honestly.
What did Ferrera do after this?
I think he did The Funeral.
Okay. So he's like more on a down slope in the sense of like, he had Body Snatchers, which was like, I guess his studio.
Oh, I think that was the one that came after Body Snatchers. Wow. Yeah.
Or I could have sworn it came before. You know what? I'm bad with timeline, so I'm all over the place. This seems like a reaction to something like Body Snatchers, which would have been like, I go, all right, why am I making this?
I actually think it's kind of a reaction to Bad Lieutenant, because in that movie, I'm just speculating here, but in that movie, Harvey Keitel goes places that are
dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous.
Or raw.
Well, there's that scene in Bad Lieutenant, for instance, when he pulls over the two girls and then he like pulls his dick out and starts jerking off. I mean, that wasn't scripted. He did that.
Really?
He did that for real. Ugh. And I mean, I don't think anybody involved in that movie has bad stories about it. I haven't heard any, at least. But I mean, to be with an actor and have that kind of relationship with an actor, to go those places with not just Keitel, but the two girls in that scene, would raise a lot of, I mean, you can see, I think, Ferrera working through his troubled feelings about that in this movie.
Actually, the movie he made after this was The Addiction, which is kind of an extension of what you see in Dangerous Game and like the self-destructive circle that you're bringing yourself through and destroying the people around you.
Yeah.
That's a great movie too.
I love The Addiction. Yeah. He's a great filmmaker. goddammit.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm glad someone finally said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the last one. Let's have a little fun at the end.
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm working myself up. The Dangerous Game, Friends, it moved me very deeply. It hurt to watch.
Did you question yourself, or you're like,
no, I'm a good person.
Oh, okay.
I would never do it. I would
yeah.
never do any of that.
No, but question yourself was like, but I take enjoyment from these things where people were hurt.
Well, actually, I do think, like, as a cinephile, as a movie buff, over the years, you do kind of romanticize, or one has romanticized those stories of excess. Marlon Brando went so deep into the role.
Yeah. Or Klaus Kinski, as we mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, and it has in the past traditionally been very easy to discount or not think of the human cost of all that.
Let me pull
to
out
answer your question,
my copy of Nosferatu in Venice.
Well, in Nosferatu in Venice, at least all that human cost led to a great film. Just a flawless piece of art.
God.
So, Viva Erotica from 1996.
Finally, we're back into territory we know very well. Hong Kong Category 3 movies, which are what, Will?
Hong Kong Category 3 movies are basically the Hong Kong equivalent of NC-17 or the X rating. They were usually very violent or
Sexual.
Sexploitation, like softcore stuff. But interestingly, these movies played at normal movie theaters.
And they had the same directors often that would jump in between, or producers or screenwriters or actors.
They were exploitation films. Certainly there was some stigma around them, but they were still mainstream films that, like, they look good. They look normal.
I mean, they're on 35 millimeter. Cinematographers would jump from shoot to shoot.
Somebody like Anthony Wong was a huge star in both, mainstream and Category 3 films. And this movie is about, first of all, this movie is it's credited to Derek Yee and Chi-leung. Derek Yee is a very successful and well-regarded Hong Kong director. Around this time, he had just made a movie called C'est la vie, mon chéri, which was
a huge hit.
Yeah, a big artistic and financial success. Chi-leung, at this point, what he says in the Blu-ray interview is that
Derek Yee's not coming in to say differently.
So this is what he says. He says that basically he conceived the movie was based around his own experiences.
He wrote the script.
Yeah, and Derek Yee was basically going to be a producer, but when the actor Leslie Cheung came on board, it became a more expensive film. The financiers wouldn't trust it to an untested director, so Derek Yee came in as co-director. I think that's plausible enough. What I will say is the movie is beautifully directed, shot by the great Hong Kong cinematographer Jingle Ma in a way that looks beautiful.
The director of Tokyo Raiders, and Silverhawk.
And the cinematographer of a little movie called Rumble in the Bronx.
There you go.
So,
you got the quality right up there on screen.
But it looks great on the current Blu-ray. And I don't know. It looks to me, I mean, I would not want to downplay Derek Yee's contribution because...
there is a character in this movie that plays Derek Yee who just opens a flop, played by actor Lau Ching-wang, who commits suicide in the film because his movie is not successful.
Right. So the movie is set against the backdrop of the Hong Kong film industry circa the mid-1990s. The industry is controlled largely by the triads. Piracy is rampant. There's much financial concern.
The way that movies are made is very quickly. They open at midnight shows, and essentially if the midnight crowds do not react well, the movie is dead, and it can be pulled from theaters in just a couple of days.
And the specter of two directors hangs over this movie, Wong Kar-wai and Wong Jing.
I know who I like more.
Well, the filmmakers...
City Hunter.
The filmmakers who at this time represented the high and the low of Hong Kong film.
Now, it did take me a little while, just because of my own personal beliefs, of like Leslie Cheung being like, oh, woe is me. As a director, I have to make a Category 3 film with seemingly 50 days of shooting and like a full crew.
Right. So as the movie begins, Leslie Cheung's director character, he's a down on his luck guy.
He's had 2 flops.
That's right. And he has to make this movie. I mean, you could remake this movie about Kenneth Branagh making Thor or something like that.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Or Guy Ritchie making Aladdin. Or except I don't think those are very good directors. No, but never mind.
There's probably more art in the movie or more opportunities for art as well.
Yeah.
Because he's basically left alone as a director too. And they're like, just need sex in your movie, and that's what I want.
He's sort of left alone, but then when he tries to make it too arty, you remember there's the scene where he does the Wong Kar-wai
that sounds like shit. Like, get that out of here. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but the production that he gets is very difficult because the leading lady, played by future star Shu Qi.
Yep, who at the time, I think they said that maybe she had just shot a Category 3 film and had done kind of like erotic magazines.
She's in like Sex and Zen 3 or something. I mean, listeners might now know her for The Assassin and Millennium Mamba.
Clearly The Transporter, that's where they know her from.
That's right.
And so she's involved as basically like the mall of the gangster who's financing the film.
And as the movie begins, she's not a very good actress. She's not really committed to it. And you see over the course, it's like a gentle, dangerous game.
Yeah,
basically. As he brings out like the great actress in her. But the movie has a sort of, I'm going to say Fellini-esque because it reminds me of 8.5, but a Fellini-esque playful approach to reality and fantasy where...
Yeah, I was definitely rolling my eyes when they did like a parody of A Clockwork Orange, the sex scene.
Yeah. I thought that was a little much too.
It's like a first-time filmmaker.
But like when Derek Yee shows up as a character and his movie's just flopped, but everybody's going to see the new Wong Jing movie.
I mean, there's so much clips from that movie. It looks like fun.
Chinese torture chamber story. There's so much Wong Jing bashing in this movie. I mean, he must have in some circles been a really disliked figure at the time.
So Anthony Wong is supposed to be playing Wong Jing in this movie when he shows show because he had like the little mustache and everything.
Yeah.
You also have like just the process of, all right, I'm a filmmaker, I have flops, and like hanging around with a bunch of other filmmakers. There's a great fantasy sequence where they're talking, trashing, like, oh, we're gonna make our other movie, blah blah blah, but this person sucks. And then Leslie Chung just sees them all as like old men having the same conversations and still not having done anything.
But the main, I guess, arc is Leslie Chung coming to not just accept directing this Category 3 movie, but also finding it a place for personal fulfillment and maybe even art. And by the end, he basically finds that fulfillment in working with his crew, working with the team.
Thanks to the cinematographer telling him, like, you know, have you seen like Japanese pink films? Like, they're very arty, and a lot of filmmakers have moved from that to successful stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I could make something good.
So I thought this movie was pretty fun. It's
I think it's fun.
It's a feel-good movie. I would definitely put it a little bit, well, maybe it's not like, we were talking about the more superficial ones at the start. I mean, this movie, I think
it does kind of get into the nitty gritty, I feel.
Yeah, like what this movie benefits from, I think, is just the textured knowledge of Hong Kong film at this time. You really do feel like it's taking place in that world. And you're hearing so many references to like the key players of the time.
Oh, at one point they're like, there's this film with unsimulated sex. Is Herman directing that? Yeah, it's probably Herman. We know who they're talking about, Herman Yao.
Yeah, that's right. So I like this movie for its time capsule quality.
And it also has like what a lot of Hong Kong films have, which is like every crew member is played basically by a crew member. Like the cinematographer in the film, Dickie, he's played by Peter No, who's a very famous cinematographer in Hong Kong. And at one point he says, oh yeah, they fired me because they thought I was like lighting an actor too dark. Guess what? That happened. The director of VIVA EROTICA had fired him earlier on a film. I love it. It's all like interconnected in that way.
Yeah, so a very fun movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one that like the process of filmmaking, I think this is probably the one that gets the most to when people think of like a filmmaking movie. This is what it is, right? Kind of like wacky fantasy
It's the Hong Kong Day for Night.
Yeah, Hong Kong Day for Night, basically. And was kind of a hit when it came out. And I think what's interesting about this film is the career the director had afterwards, which is
the one who's not Derek Yee.
The one that's not Derek Yee, which is he continued working and made successful films, but like the last thing he did was just a Donnie Yen drama about like mountain climbing or rescue missions that like no one has seen.
This is why I don't want to discount the participation of Derek Yee in this film. You know, just saying.
Oh, you could also just get a guy that like, listen, it's his first film. He's full of piss and vinegar. Everything that he has, he's putting up there on screen. And like Leslie Chung is a bit of a sad sack, but he's still Leslie Chung. So it's fun to watch him. And Shuki is great. I mean,
she's incredible. I mean, you can really see why she became a star. The way that, like, when she gives that big monologue towards the end of the movie, you go, wow.
It's just built that way, and there's like, boom, they nail it right at the end of the movie. So I think this is a topic we could probably return to. Like looking at that letterbox list of like films about filmmaking, I'm like, there's 1,000 of them here.
The Artist.
Yeah, I mean, the dog, rest in power. Is that his name? What was it?
Uggy the dog, I think.
He's there on the red carpet.
Ironically named because he was so cute.
Oh! Artist, I think we're probably going to win a prize because we're the first people to mention it in 10 years.
Yeah.
Academy Award winner, Best Picture, The Artist. And again, if people have suggestions of stuff that they'd really like us to tackle, let us know at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com.
Speaking of which, do we have any letters?
We do have letters. Again, importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And our first question is from Jeremy. And he goes, first of all, I just want to say thanks for helping me keep my sanity during the first half of 2020 when I was living in China and forced to go under lockdown for 6 months. Owing to China's strict pandemic protocols, I wasn't allowed to leave my campus apartment for any reason and had to work remotely. So your podcast was one of the only sources of normality during that time. The only source of normality. I was eventually able to leave China and now work comfortably in South Korea, but I still enjoy tuning into your episodes, both the regular IP and Patreon ones.
Fortunately, we handled the pandemic much better over here. We completely eradicated it.
Let me just look up what's going on these days. Oh no! As a fellow passionate cinephile, I find your podcast to be really the only one that skips the same tired old talking points and consistently informs me about filmmakers or trends I know nothing about. Good. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
I especially appreciated your recent episode on Palestinian director Ilya. Oh man, I knew how to say his name when we did that episode.
Ilya Suleiman.
You got it. Huh, that's weird. That episode seems to have less listens than all the other ones.
Yeah, shame on you people. He's a great filmmaker.
I wonder what it could be.
He's a great filmmaker. Listen to it.
Yeah, it's weird how the filmmakers that people know have more listens than, when we do a Norwegian feminist filmmaker.
Yeah.
We'll eventually go into a slump and it's like Tom Cruise 3 and stuff like that. My question relates, also stamps.com.
Man, we did the David Fincher episode and I've had multiple people say to me, sounds like you really didn't want to do David Fincher.
You're right. We didn't want to do David.
No, but we just had a few obscure topics in a row, so,
My question relates to filmmakers or actors that are more popular outside their home country, often for peculiar or perplexing reasons.
Jerry Lewis.
While teaching at a university in China, I often assigned movie reviews as writing assignments and began to catch on to certain non-Chinese films that my student loved. They often mentioned the usual Hollywood standbys, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, Marvel movies, etc. But I was surprised by certain other movies that were frequently praised. Leon the Professional had a massive fan base, which you may already be aware of if you've seen Stephen Chow's comedy, Out of the Dark. In that movie, Stephen Chow is basically playing a parody of Leon the Professional.
When you look at Letterboxd and you look at the list of most logged movies this week, in the top 50, you will always see Leon the Professional.
Really?
Which is amazing to me because that's a pro-pedophilia movie.
But isn't it just a father-daughter relationship, Will? Let me look up what Luc Besson's been up to lately. Right. Oh, no!
But anyway, people love it. I haven't seen it in years.
No.
Luc Besson episode?
Boy, that's a lot of baggage to unpack, right?
Yeah.
He's still pretty popular, though.
Yeah, I don't really like him.
No, and he still gets to make movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched... were you someone who watched The Fifth Element a million times when you were a kid?
I saw it once.
Oh, yeah. That was one that I guess someone owned that I knew because we watched it again and again and again. But there's also a lot of love from Chinese filmgoers for films like The Pursuit of Happiness, Venom, and most inexplicable of all, the late career Rob Reiner, with Flipped being regarded as a modern classic over there. While none of his early hits, This Is Spinal Tap, When Harry Met Sally, even The Princess Bride, seem to be known at all. I wonder if that's because of what's just available in China or not available in China.
I thought it was interesting that, Star Wars, the first one, didn't play in mainland China until just a few years ago. Disney finally brought it over. They finally let it in, basically, so to hype up the new ones. And Chinese audiences really didn't care for it much. And none of the Star Wars movies have done all that well in China. I guess just because they didn't grow up with it. They weren't there for it.
He actually made a letterbox list that I will link in the show notes where he listed all the movies he's found that in China has been very popular. The Gods Must Be Crazy 2. Let's look at some obvious ones. V for Vendetta. Don't let that be seen in China.
What was that one that I thought, okay, there's a movie called Heidi. I thought it was Bruno with Sacha Baron Cohen from the poster.
It's kind of a similar poster.
And I thought, how'd they let that one in?
But you have Detachment, the Adrian Brody film, The Bucket List.
Detachment, you mean the Tony Kaye film.
Oh, okay. You also have 2012. Remember Les Choristes? Choristes? Is that how you say the word in French?
Okay, so now I'm trying to think, what are the foreign movies that people overseas might think are inexplicably popular over here? I don't think there are many. RRR.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Because that's one, it's as people who watch it in mainland China or even Hong Kong are we've had this for decades. Why is it such a big deal? How is this different?
Yeah, well, I mean, the screenwriter of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is
a white guy,
yeah.
And as people have said, Chow Yun-fat is not even that good at Mandarin in the movie because it's not his, he's one of his major languages.
Right.
The letter continues, moving over to your side of the fence, have you ever noticed any Canadian films, filmmakers, actors that seem to be more popular outside of Canada, perhaps in my home country of the USA or vice versa? Are there certain non-Canadian films, filmmakers, or actors that are embraced in Canada but received more coolly in their nation of origin? What do you think are the reasons for this? Would love to hear your thoughts. As always, keep up the great work, which is so good that I'm not even bothered by your occasional mispronunciation of certain Chinese directors. Trust me, living over here does help. So wait, is he saying that we got to move over to China?
Well, I make no apologies.
Apologies.
For all the names we mispronounce. We're doing our best. Canadian stuff that's more popular overseas, I can't think of a single damn thing.
Well, anything that's popular from Canada overseas, Canada loves that it's popular. They're, the second it gets any success in the States, as we talked about on our Bruce McDonald episode, it's oh yeah, we love it too. It's the best. Woo, it's great.
I'll tell you, I think it's really funny that the Red Green Show played on PBS movies in
Was
the
it
United
popular
States.
though? I don't think it had the same.
It had a cult following. That guy, Steve Smith, who plays Red Green, tours the U.S. Now, mind you, he doesn't tour Manhattan. He goes to, other places.
people's towns.
Yeah. But I remember seeing like a segment on the news when they were making Red Green Duct Tape Forever, the movie, when like they had a bunch of the American PBS viewers who kicked in money for the budget. There was a scene at the end at the duct tape convention where they all like got to be extras. And I remember one of them saying, yeah, when you see it for the first time, like you might not quite get it, but it's kind of like when you first saw Monty Python, and I'm just thinking like, wait, you're from fucking Minnesota. Like you're barely further north than Toronto is. It's not that
So what you're trying to say
inexplicable.
is that us big city folk, we don't understand the Red Green show.
Yeah.
Not like the common people.
I'd say the opposite. I think you and me, I understand the Red Green show.
Oh man, I was jumping for that remote anytime. We did an episode on, no wait, did we do?
We did big screen comedian failures.
Oh, and we watched Duct Tape Forever, a movie that the people don't want us to see because it was very difficult.
So hard to find that movie.
Yep. Other than that, like anything popular here is popular, or like anything popular in the States. is
Anything
popular in Canada.
anything that's popular here will get exported.
Yeah.
Like they'll just, Jim Carrey will move to America. That's what happens.
And it's not like, man, America loves score a hockey musical. How did it? Yeah. I feel like, movies, we don't make enough, damn it, to get that kind of attention outside.
Yeah, it's hard to think of. I mean, a really classic example is the Canadian film Nobody Waved Goodbye, which is one of our groundbreaking Canadian films.
Oh, but when it played in Canada, it's like, man, we don't care.
Nobody cared until it played the New York Film Festival.
And won an award, probably. And then people were like, oh, yeah, woo, yeah.
Now it's a classic, yeah.
I mean, write in if people can think of something else. Like, is there like a cult Canadian TV show that didn't make
I think
it?
they like Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, they like but people love Trailer Park Boys in Canada too. Like, it's not inexplicable of like, wow, how did was this able to travel? I mean, are there big Odd Job Jack fans south of the border?
Yeah.
Man, when I used to walk, I don't remember what street it was, but there was a giant like Odd Job Jack building with like gigantic images of our favorite classic character.
I remember it was on Bathurst below college.
And it was like, it had been abandoned for a decade, but he was still up there.
I remember it well. They say that Snit from
You know who voiced Odd Job Jack?
Don McKellar.
McKellar.
But I was just gonna say Snit from YTV is considered a genius in France. Did you know that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a
Will's joking.
There's a whole issue of Kaida
People
Cinema.
do not know who Snit is, and now they're gonna go looking, and then it'll be like, "What the hell is that?" Can we get away with an episode just about YTV?
Well, it's not a movie, is the problem. But I would do it.
They played it's Dark Knight, an episode during a Shocktober.
It would just be 30 minutes of going, remember PJ Phil? What a cool guy.
Wait, is there any like YTV original movies that we could? I can't think of any.
I don't think so. There was a lot of YTV original programming.
I mean, I'm sitting here with the man who wrote the book on YTV.
Literally.
What's it called again? If anybody,
It's called An Oral History of YTV in the 90s.
and people may be like, what is it? Well, if you didn't live in Canada, you
Don't bother.
Don't bother.
Yeah.
But
It's
was
for people specifically who are between the ages of like 33 and 37
right now.
Yeah.
It was basically like public access kids programming. That's
Yeah.
all it was.
Yeah.
And that there were a lot of hosts and stuff like that who would do time filling stuff, sometimes just to like play with little figurines in front of the camera for half an hour.
And what was
people ate it up.
What was amazing is it was the one children's channel in Canada.
That was it. Yeah.
It was just that. This was before
and
the
it was
internet.
like no money, no nothing.
But they would import the Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah.
And so between the Nickelodeon shows, you'd have these like freaking teenagers basically.
No, they were teenagers.
Like,
paid nothing.
Just riffing into a camera.
Yep.
And this was broadcast to millions of children across Canada.
It was the only kids show.
And they were these.
Isn't it wild how
Yeah.
like little they got paid for how many people were watching?
Yeah.
Criminal. Throw those people in
and
jail.
And they were so famous.
Yes.
To children.
And they were like, we can't pay rent.
Yeah.
Based on the money for standing basically in front of a camera for like 7 hours a day.
I mean,
sometimes.
they were insanely talented, those people, at what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, the guy who did Snit, which was all right. I just want to try to explain what Snit looks like. He's a big TV with eyes, and on the TV is just someone's like lips and teeth.
Yeah,
mostly teeth moving up and down.
And the TV is surrounded by bubble gum, basically. It's coated in bubble gum.
I can't do his voice because it goes through a filter.
Yeah, it was kind of like this.
Yeah.
Snat. Yeah,
we loved him. We loved him. Yeah, buy that book that Will wrote on YTV, which is just basically interviewing.
It's just
all
like $5.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not from Canada, don't worry.
do it. You'll be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Even though like the story of PJ Katie, like she got in an accident and like it's harrowing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to sell it to any Canadian listeners out there.
I'm just glad she's safe and secure.
Okay, so this week on our Patreon, I mean, people have been asking for it. Anyone knows when I say that, I'm about to say something
that they've not
heard of.
They're not asking for this. They've never asked for this. They don't want it at all. We talked about the Dick Van Dyke Oscar vehicle.
Yeah, or is it? We discussed it a lot on the episode.
In the late 1960s, Dick Van Dyke made a film directed by Carl Reiner where he played the rise and fall of a silent film comedian called The Comic. It's inexplicable.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about it for 30 minutes.
And we're just trying to figure out what is this movie? What was it trying to do?
Mm-hmm. And it ends with a long riff where we try to make a biopic about Chevy Chase or pitch it.
Yeah, you're going to want to hear that.
All right. So you can listen to that just by subscribing at patreon.com/theimportantcinema-club. Next week, we're doing it again.
That's right. We're doing our third annual trip to the Mahoning Drive-In in Pennsylvania. We're going for VHS Fest. They're showing mostly shot-on-video horror movies. Mm-hmm. Conrad Brooks versus the Werewolf.
On the big screen.
Attack of the Eye Creatures.
Attack of the Beast Creatures. Yeah. Yes. Are you going to make it that late, though? That's like the fourth film.
Man, 4 VHS horror movies in one night. That's going to be tough. I have traditionally fallen asleep in the fourth movie, but we'll see.
And I mean, yeah, these are so exciting that you're going to be at the edge of your seat. Slumber Party Massacre is playing on the Sunday, and I think it's like TerrorVision. That's a 35 million. That's a Charles Band Empire picture. It's playing on the day before that. I'm excited. Found Footage Fest is going to be hosting it. Love those guys. Very funny. And lots of celebrities are going to be there. So
you and me.
Yeah. Bring us stuff. We love stuff. And as well, I'm going to have like a little, probably like VHS selling stuff, which I will probably buy nothing because any like interesting tape will be hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
But I'll look at them and be like, that's cool.
Yeah. A better place to buy VHS would be at some
flea market,
thrift store somewhere. You know, the real freaks will be there.
Now, do you still collect VHS?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay. But it needs to be very specific.
Not necessarily.
No.
No.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more on the episode next week. And until then, my name's Justin McClue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. As per usual, I would like to thank some of our new patrons who include Prick Commenter, Gold Member, man, all the hits today, Michael Davis, Gabriel Bass, Matthew, Luke Sims, Logan Robert, and Tim Schofield. Thank you very much for becoming patrons. We could not keep doing this without you.
Well, on Friday last week, I'd had a really long week. I was really tired, and I wanted to, as the kids say, turn my brain off. Kids don't say that. That's I don't know why I said that.
Anytime you say, as kids say, you're going to say something antiquated that no child has ever said.
But I have
you got the Riz.
I have a 4K Blu-ray of Return from Gilligan's Island.
Oh, so you bought it.
I bought it.
Did that thing get shut down? Because like people are like, no?
It's still there. Return from Gilligan's Island.
How much did you pay for that, Will?
Too much money.
I saw it. You sent the link to me and I went, oh man. Wait, 4K?
So I couldn't believe this. There is some guy, I guess Gilligan's Island fan, who I saw the cover of this Blu-ray and I thought it was a joke.
It looks like a joke.
It says Rescue from Gilligan's Island and it says 4K Blu-ray on top, and I thought, well, that's obviously a joke. But no, he had these elements, the 16 millimeter print, and he scanned it, bunch of extras, and 2 different versions. You can watch the TV version and you can watch just the raw reels.
All right, so I'm going to be honest with you, Will. I've never seen an episode of Gilligan's Island. Neither have you.
We have that in common, my friend.
So you just love the idea of this.
Yes.
I love this new like kind of fan stuff. Like what was Ninja Terminator? I read the back of it. It said like from a battered 16 millimeter print. I was like, no one ever used to say that, like from a battered whatever.
Before we did it?
Sure, yes.
Are we?
Gold Ninja Video, that proudly being like, oh yeah, it's kind of
We were
like,
the first people to ever scan a 16 millimeter print.
But also admit to it and be like, it doesn't look that good.
Yeah.
Because usually you'd pick up in the bargain bin, you're like, this looks like shit. As opposed to the people in the back being like, yeah, but it's a vibe.
Well,
which we do believe.
Yeah, this 4K remaster.
Remaster?
Well, it's remastered in the sense they created a new master.
Yes.
But it's Rescue from Gilligan's Island. It looks terrible. It's discolored. It's scratchy. That's fine by me. I don't need it to look good. In fact, I'd rather it look bad. And so I'm watching this, and this was a movie that was made 10 years after the show ended, and it was one of 3 made-for-TV Gilligan's Island sequel movies. So the whole cast is really old now.
Yeah.
And I've never seen the show, but I know who the characters are.
Yeah.
You got the millionaire, the skipper, the movie star, etc.
I couldn't even name the characters.
Miscellaneous others, you know? And I have seen, though, I haven't seen the show, but I think, was it Mike Wood or was it Adam Thorne did a Twitch stream a year or two ago where they played...
I'm going to guess Mike Wood. That sounds like something that he would do.
They played Gilligan's Island meets the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yep.
Where Martin Landau is in it. And I kind of couldn't believe it because Martin Landau is really bringing it.
Yep.
And I respect that. But this movie, well, the main thing I'll say is these reels don't have a laugh track.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised it exists in that form.
And I assume it had to have had a laugh track when it aired. Even though it's a TV movie, it had to have, because...
Is there a lot of dead air?
There is dead air. And like the jokes are... the jokes are illegit. You don't even notice they're jokes without the laugh track.
So what's weird about that is like, where did the 60 millimeter print come from then? Like, was it like...
Probably being thrown out at the library.
Yeah, but like, why would they even sell something that doesn't have a laugh track like that? Like,
well,
how does it exist?
It made me wonder, like, was this the master, and then they turned the master over to the TV station? And
well,
the TV
yeah, like the
station
inner negative, and then they make copies of it. But then no, because probably the production studio. I'm sure I could look, and there's like a history of laugh tracks in
and I don't care that much.
No, I don't care that much.
Yeah.
But so you watched it, and were you shocked when there was no laugh track? Were you like, whoa?
I was a little surprised, and then I thought a laugh track would be helpful. It would be nice to know what's supposed to be funny.
You know what's funny about a laugh track is like, it's kind of like when you do something that you just do normally, like walking, and that you like, wait, how am I walking? And you just think about it for a sec, like this mechanism that you just do normally. Laugh tracks are like that too. If you notice them, you're like, wait, there's just people laughing the entire time. That feels so weird.
Yeah, and like, why do we need this?
Yes. And then like modern TV
Shouldn't
shows
I be laughing?
still have them too.
Yeah.
Like sitcoms will have laugh tracks.
So I did look into who made Rescue from Gilligan's Island. So this is the 3rd most popular on Letterboxd film by Leslie H. Martinson. The most popular film he directed, can you guess?
Gilligan's Island Meet the Harlem Globetrotters?
No, he did not direct that one.
Oh, okay.
The most popular film he directed was...
The Shaggy Dia.
It was Batman from 1966.
Oh, he did the original.
West.
I'm shocked you didn't know that name right off the top of your head when you read it.
I mean, what can I say? And I'll say this for Leslie Martinson. He did a great job on Batman, you know?
Really fun.
He had
right the tone.
Yeah, the tone is perfect in that movie.
When did Batman, the Adam West movie, come out?
66.
When did Return of Gilligan's Island come out?
78.
Okay, that's a long time.
Oh my God. And if you didn't know it was 1978, you'd think, well, I don't know when this would be from. It's so ancient. Every joke is so old.
So was this the last Gilligan Island thing that was made?
No, it was the first of 3.
Oh my God.
They were making them up to 1982.
Oh, they're like, please let us die.
1982, Ronald Reagan is president. Mm-hmm. Like you were so far from the show, and oh my God, I can't imagine.
If the other 2 are released on 4K Blu-rays,
I might get the Harlem Globetrotter one.
Mm-hmm. What's the other one?
I don't know.
You don't know. Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Wish they were dead or something like that. Yeah. So will this make you want to check out Gilligan Island episodes?
What a nice question.
I know the answer.
I love you're heroically trying to extend this conversation, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm trying to justify you dropping $70 on Return to Gilligan's Island on 4K Blu-ray.
Listen.
You're going to look at it, you're going to be like, our time is so short on this world.
I think now that I've talked about it on the podcast, I can probably claim it as a tax write-off.